Welcome to a very special edition of The Weekend Listen live from New York City. It's Kevan Kenney, and over the past, really, I guess, year and a half, 3 little letters have taken over the world of music. They've taken it by storm, becoming an international phenomenon. BTS will be hitting the stage at New York City Field Saturday night, a 40,000-plus seat stadium. The group sold out within minutes, and today we're going to be taking a look back at just how the 7 members got to where we find them today, and also look forward to where they may be headed. We'll be hearing from you at home, but let me first introduce my guests today, 2 of the leading voices in the world of music journalism. Please give a warm welcome to K-pop columnists Tamar Herman and Jeff Benjamin.
Hi, guys.
Hello, hello.
This is about as good as it gets.
I hope so.
Having you 2 in the house. This is awesome, guys. Thank you so much for stopping by.
Of course. Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. And what an exciting week. We're going to get to this week, but there's so much to cover. And I really want to give as brief a history as we can, because I think a lot of people, they hear about BTS, they hear about the fandom, maybe they hear about, the charts or whatever, but I want to tell the story from the experts themselves. So I guess let's get back to the origins. Who knows, how did they actually form? Like step 1, Tamar, do you know?
So like a lot of groups in South Korea, they were formed by a company, Big Hit Entertainment. Several of the members had already been known to some degree in the underground scene. So like RM and Suga particularly were already rappers in the underground scene. Suga was already producing for people. J-Hope was known as an underground dancer. And they kind of got brought into this company. RM was the first one, and from what I've heard, the group was kind of built around him and his like ideas of what there should be for a group. So it had the hip-hop focus from the very beginning because of him. So, and then the other members were brought in eventually.
Definitely. Jeff, do you remember the first time you ever heard the letters BTS?
Well, those 3 letters, I mean, behind the scenes probably.
I know, how mad are behind the scenes anything right now, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think a lot of fans actually probably like feel this way too, is that if you see a video, it's like BTS of whatever, and they really mean behind the scenes. I think like I get a little like sideswiped by it.
Yeah.
But the actual name BTS, rather, I mean, I had heard about them, of course, for a while. They were big in the K-pop world. This K-pop world is very connected in that way, and you definitely hear about different artists. But I still remember it was 2014 KCON, which is this big K-pop festival in Los Angeles. I still remember they were the youngest group on the roster by far, and they got such a large response. Compared to like all the artists, I was like, and you can see the article is actually like still on Billboard. It's like my review is there. I was like, you need to watch them because they got such a big response as a result. And I don't know. And ever since then, I was like, oh my gosh, I gotta watch these BTS guys.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it's just undeniable like that. The reaction's so strong. And speaking of their origin, one of their first real official U.S. media appearances was thanks to you, Jeff. We have a clip of this. This is from 2015.
You do?
It's actually taped from just up the road in Chelsea at the Billboard Studios.
Yeah.
Let's take a look at this.
쩔어라는 그 곡을 통해 저희의 새로운 모습을 보여드리고자 후속곡으로 선택하게 됐고요. 안무는 태어나서 이렇게 빠른 춤은 처음 봤기 때문에 굉장히 저희 방피디님을 원망하고 있습니다.
Here, listen. Everybody, don't play around, man. Look straight, fool. Man, you stop looking around.
We realize that things are quite harsh and hard everywhere, but especially in America. So what we learned eventually was that we need to practice and more.
You guys were terrible.
Yeah.
Sorry. You made a good ass sandwich. How did you expect me to eat that? It was this tough. How did you?
What Warren G and Coolio told us was that it comes from heart and it opens to all kinds of people in the world. We don't need any prejudices for hip hop, and we should listen to that music of hip hop by our heart and just that's what we learned, I think.
That's amazing. I'm shocked Steve Aoki didn't go with Coolio over Designer on the Mic Drop remix there. I didn't know they were such good friends back in the day.
Yeah, no, I mean that was wow. That was like
an experience.
Yeah, it was a real flashback. Yeah, I still remember at the Billboard Studios, like you're saying in Chelsea. Yeah, that the video crew in particular was just like they're like, this is the best performance we've ever done, like in studio. Like it was such a great moment because they weren't the chart toppers that we know today. This was 2015. They even look kind of different. Like just they've clearly grown and matured quite a bit. But yeah, I was really proud of that moment. talent in particular and just kind of giving them that stage.
I mean, it's amazing to think of because I think BTS is so synonymous with the brand of Billboard. You know, us three all work there. Is it fair to say, though, you were probably the first or one of the first people to bring BTS to Billboard's attention?
Oh gosh, I mean that's a big pressure to say. I mean, you know, even with I think with international artists in general, it's always tough to like kind of prove that like, yes, this is worth your time. I know they are halfway across the world, but I mean, even in 2017, which is kind of crazy, right? That this is just last year, but sometimes it was kind of a struggle to get people on board with the BTS thing. And I tried and I showed, I was like, you know, I promise this will pay off. And then they see the numbers and the reactions and the excitement that this group brings, you know, because of so many factors, of course, but yeah, and I'm always like, see, I told you. But, you know, it all goes back to that 2014 moment I think I had and hearing their first music and just really being kind of amazed and blown away by not only the reaction, but also the messages that were there as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And Tamar, you were telling me before, you were actually in South Korea when they named themselves, or tell this story.
Yeah, so I actually was living in Korea in 2013 when the group was like formed and debuted formally. And I remember at the time there was a lot of discussion about what English media should call them because in Korean it's Bangtan Sonyeodan, which means Bulletproof Boy Scouts, and it kind of didn't roll with anybody in the English media. So for a while, people were calling them Bangtan Boys, and then eventually BTS became what everyone was calling them. But at the time, it was just like everyone was noticing, like, oh, they're like their first song, No More Dream was their first song, and it was kind of like, as a student in Korea at the time, it was like, oh, they're like going up against like student life and what the aggressive, kind of like a little bit more aggressive. And honestly, looking back, it is like, if I had known then what I had known now, it kind of makes sense. Yeah. But it definitely took a while. Like you were mentioning, in Dope was kind of probably the first song that really captured a lot of people's attention internationally.
Yeah, absolutely. And then another moment that definitely captured people's attention, I think, in terms of U.S. media, was this clip we're going to show you right here from the 2017 Billboard Music Awards, and they took home, spoiler alert, Top Social Artist. Check it out.
What? Chills.
The memories, right?
And I love that. Thank you, Billboard, for supporting us. I don't know. I just thought it was so nice.
Well, they ended up putting it on the album. It was so much fun. They put it on Love Yourself Her, like the whole speech.
Right, they did.
Yeah, it was cool.
How big was that moment, would you say, in terms of their journey?
Pretty, like, it can obviously get bigger because they have gotten bigger, but I think it was really impactful for a lot of people in the US who weren't familiar with BTS, weren't familiar with K-pop, to really see, first of all, that they had this following that was huge and phenomenal and could get them to the point where they were competing with Justin Bieber and beating him, which I think most people are just like, where did that happen? Like, I had a lot of people texting me that night. So you know how like you've been talking about K-pop for a while? So I just saw this, and you're right. I was like, oh, okay, cool. It was definitely the start of a lot.
Yeah.
And I think for the first time, too, just an equal platform stage, finally. You know, I've said this for years now, you know, give these artists like a similar platform, an equal platform as these other Western artists that we know, and you know, everyone knows Justin Bieber, Selena Gomez. We know they're so huge. But then when you add a group like BTS into the mix, and then they outperform them so much so, and then they surpass them, and they have this huge response, it's just finally like the eye-opening moment that like, it's just, and that's why like it's so important just to have that like that inclusivity and like, you know, representation in that way too, you know?
Yeah, 100%. We're going to touch on just actually that debate of like, are they still a K-pop act or have they transcended the genre at the end of the show? But then from that clip you just saw there, they go on this amazing run with the Dick Clark Productions team of appearing at the American Music Awards, performing DNA in 2017, Dick Clark's New Year's Rockin' Eve they perform at. Then they come back for the Billboard Music Awards this year in 2018. They perform Fake Love. They repeat as Top Social Artists, first time ever I believe that's happened. What has this run overall meant to them? How important is it in terms of them being respected in U.S. media and music circles overall?
I think it really helped hone in the fact for a lot of people who maybe aren't media watchers or aren't music watchers how big they are, because these were events that aren't, like, the casual music listener isn't necessarily going to know about BTS because, like, your curated playlist might not show them up for you if, like, you're not listening to them. But if you're watching the AMAs, you're going to see their performance. If you're watching the New Year's Eve, every single different performance brought in a different audience who kind of recognized, oh, look, this band is here, which means that they have a big following, so maybe I should pay attention to them. So I know some people are always like disappointed when they get nominated for social awards. Me too. I like want them to be recognized for their music, but at the same time, the social awards are really important because they show how big of their following is. And obviously, you're not going to have a following just because you're putting out crap music. Like, there's a reason for this, and these have all been showing people. I think it was pretty aggressive for a while. First the BBMAs, then the AMAs, then New Year's Eve, and then it took a few more months until the BBMAs. And it just really, I felt like returning and showing how dynamic and charismatic they were on these major national stages was really important.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just how easily, you know, how much they fit into these, you know, great award shows, these great programs. You know, it wasn't, they didn't like, you know, they didn't pay for their spot, or, you know, they didn't bribe someone to get there. They were there because they earned it, but then they also did quite well. And I think, you know, we even saw like Miley Cyrus and, you know, like people like really getting down with their music. I think it just, you know, they didn't like fall down the iTunes charts. They surged up. There was a great reaction as a result. And it just showed that they deserve to be there just as much as all the other artists up there.
1,000%. And I've been lucky enough to be at a couple of these award shows, and it's amazing to see the reactions. You look at people from the Chainsmokers to Demi Lovato to everybody in the house. They all want pictures with BTS.
Yes, they do.
It's like it was at the AMAs last year. It was the first time I was ever around BTS, and I was like, this is so crazy. This Korean pop group are literally the toast of the town. It's incredible. And then they, of course, followed up all of that success on the award show circuit with back-to-back #1 albums this year on the Billboard 200 charts, talking Love Yourself, Tear, and of course Love Yourself, Answer more recently. Just some stats for you at home. Love Yourself, Tear, back #1 in May of 2018. First K-pop album to ever lead the Billboard 200, and first primarily foreign language album to reign atop that chart in 12 years. Let's begin with Tear right there, and I'll kick it to you, Tamar, of just that going #1 this year.
What about it?
Well, just I mean, that was pretty. Yeah, that was pretty major. I mean, what are your memories of that achievement?
I think everyone was kind of holding their breath, waiting for the update because it seemed like this was going to be coming. Love Yourself, Her had done immensely well. Also, it was #7, and it kind of just seemed.
Yep.
Right? Yeah. I was like, sometimes I think in my mind it's a single when it's the album. That was definitely the album. The album was lucky #7, which is BTS's group number. They've had a lot of moments that have been 7, so like that was a really good sign, I thought. And it just kind of like seemed like it had to go to #1. And then when it did, I shed some tears. Like this has been something I've been reporting on for years, and they really deserve it. They've worked really hard for us. The fans have worked really hard for it. Like there was so much behind it, I think, and it really kind of showed, I think, America that people are listening to music outside of this country. People are happy to listen to music that's not English. You know, last year we had Despacito and Mi Gente, and this kind of honed in on the fact, I think, that we're ready for chart toppers that aren't necessarily primarily in English, and like they surpassed the record for first time in a decade since 2006.
6, I believe, yeah.
And that was like a classic opera pop album. So that was still classically Romance language stuff that's pretty familiar to people. So this was just something that I think really was monumental for the state of global music and what its future is in the U.S.
Yeah, and also launched, I should mention, the top 10 Hot 100 hit Fake Love off this record.
Yes, indeed. I mean, it just, I thought it was so like fascinating too, that like there's this big thing, especially in Korean music, you know, the first performance you give of a new single, it's kind of known as a comeback performance. And it was just such a major, in my opinion, a major flex in that way. Just the fact that their very first live performance was on this humongous U.S. award show. And, you know, it was kind of a learning experience too, you know, I think for BTS and for the fans as well, that like this is what, you know, this sort of level of achievement looks like. And, you know, so amazing. Like, I don't think anyone probably, I think, you know, BTS keep making new goals, and they need to be careful, I think, because the fans will do that, like, because they keep hitting these goals and they find a way no matter what. It's amazing, and I love it. But yeah, they did it, and they got a top 10 single. I mean, I've always said, you know, albums, singles, you know, you can have a chart hit, and it can fall off in a week later or something like that. But really having these sustainable, actual hits that hit the upper echelons of the chart really say something larger about what BTS was cultivating.
And I think what strikes me, just watching their trajectory, is how fast they evolve and how fast they grow. Because we're talking about, it was a bit of a surprise in May when they went #1, but then this time around with Answer, it was like, oh yeah, well of course they're going to be #1. You know, that's 3 months, it's 4 months.
I wasn't surprised.
I was about to say, like, it's been coming for a while.
No.
Each album of theirs since I think 2016 or 2015 when they debuted on the 200 chart.
2015, actually.
Was it 2015? Like it's been since the Most Beautiful Moment in Life era. Every single album of theirs a Korean album has charted. So at first, you know, like you started in the bubbling under, and then you got into the 200, and then slowly they worked through their ranks. So it just seemed like really like for people who were watching, like they were building their way up, and so the #1 kind of seemed inevitable.
Yeah.
And now we're there, and like you can't go higher, so you just keep doing it again and again.
Exactly. It's crazy. Just some stats really quick. BTS and K-pop's biggest week to date with Love Yourself Answer this past September. Third largest week for a pop album this year, and then the first pop act since One Direction back in 2014, excuse me, with 2 #1 albums in less than a year. So just incredible. And you speak about those, you know, where do you go from there, Tamar, right? You're already #1. They've been on an amazing press run here in New York City. I'm sure you at home have seen it, whether it's GMA, Jimmy Fallon, the UN. We're going to talk about all of that. But I want to start with Fallon and specifically something that came up, this Grammy talk. Jeff, you talk about how the fans can really achieve anything they put their minds to. What are your thoughts on BTS at the Grammys in 2019?
I've been asked this question a couple times actually, and I think there's 2 ways to go about it, and I hope you're listening, Army. But yeah, I think BTS there's 2 ways it could go. You know, they could definitely be recognized in sort of the world category, which is sort of its own category in and of itself, and that's a huge honor in and of itself, because I think BTS is such a recognizable name that the voting academy, you know, this really, like, the recording academy are the sole people who decide Grammys, and it has nothing to do with fans. It has solely to do with this academy and the industry and things like that. But BTS and their fans have done such a great job at getting their name out there that if you see a name like BTS, if they put themselves up for nomination there, then you know, why I could definitely see a nomination in that category too. On the other hand, though, I truly do think that they're more than deserving of making those generally larger pop categories if that's what they want to submit themselves for. Because, yeah, I mean, again, we were talking about top 10 hit, Idol went to #11, work with Nicki Minaj, work with Steve Aoki, work with, you know, these names that are very common and very well known in the Grammy world. And I don't want to get too hopeful or anything like that, but you know, like it's very exciting to think that they're even at this stage to be so recognized in that way. And I think it's just a matter of time until there's some type of recognition in that way.
Right.
Yeah, I think even a nomination at this point would just be like super exciting. Like if they won, you know, Best Newcomer or one of the newcomer awards, like that'd be great. But at this point, I mean, I want them to get all the awards, but I think it'd be really interesting to see if the Academy, which, you know, has traditionally not necessarily gone towards the most avant-garde music, if they recognize outside of the world category that BTS is really worthwhile to, you know, recognize, even if they don't win, but hopefully they'll win.
Well, and again, you speak to sort of, I don't know how to go about talking about the Academy and their interesting decisions over the past couple of years.
Yeah.
But, you know, big debate, right, between Adele's 25 and then Beyonce's Lemonade, and a big defense of Adele winning over Beyonce was the commercial success of that album, it becoming, you know, the biggest first week of sales ever. You think about commercial success, what other pop act has dropped 2 #1 albums, a top 10 hit, as you said? I mean,
That's what I'm saying.
the resume is there. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I think in America, luckily, we have a lot of award shows, so the BBMAs and the AMAs, I think, are a little bit more relevant towards the actual commercial success, and I'd like for the Grammys to recognize their artistry, because really that's more the industry insiders who are part of the Academy. I think it's kind of more of a tastemaker gauge than like chart success, so we know they're going to do well at the BBMAs and the AMAs already. Like, that's impossible not to.
Right.
But it'd be cool if, I think, on artistic level, they got the recognition at the Grammys.
absolutely. And I think it'd just be huge because I'm excited just to see them not separate from the fandom, but like become more than just this band that has these diehard fans. I'd love for U.S. media specifically to maybe say, hey, why do they have these fans? Maybe because the music's that good, you know, and start talking about the music a little bit more.
Sometimes I just don't really get it, because you're just sitting here like, oh, the fans. I really, really hate reading concert reviews lately, because they all talk about the screaming fans, and there are concert reviews that have used the word scream 4 times in the same article, and all I'm just wondering is, why aren't you writing about what the music is, what these fans are screaming for? Like, it's really not that hard.
Exactly.
Luckily, we have Google Translate.
Yeah, there you go. You should control Command F and then just type in like, scream and then just put them all on blast.
I have done that. I have definitely done that.
Another big appearance that I believe you were in the house for GMA, right, Jeff?
Yes, I was.
What was that like? They shut down Times Square.
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, of course, we were kind of, O'Fallon is a interesting kind of juxtaposition to their two big New York appearances because Fallon, you have to kind of line up early and then you get your tickets and it's like closed off inside Rockefeller Center. But Times Square, everyone in America knows everyone in the world knows Times Square. Everyone knows the show, like Good Morning America, our #1 rated morning show in that way. It's very easy for the fans to show their impact and show their excitement in that way. But what I actually liked the most about this that appearance is that they did a really good job at talking about the message and the larger concepts behind BTS. Like Robin Roberts did an amazing job, and I was actually really happy because we talked very quickly backstage, and she said she read an article of mine, and she said, "Oh, it was great homework for my." I was like, "Oh, you did your homework." Yeah. I was like, "Thank goodness," finally, and you could feel that heartfelt sincerity, and even when a member was kind of trying to do his best to speak in English, even though he wasn't fluent in English, she really she was honed in on him. She was looking right at him, and I just thought it was and I think it was the kind of appearance that a lot of fans were waiting for, and to me, it meant a lot just as a person in media as well.
Oh, absolutely.
Just watching it at home, like Fallon and Michael Strahan, you could see in their head, they're becoming fans, they're recognizing the appeal. And I thought it was the cutest thing in the world. It was just they're getting it. They're seeing that these guys have a message. They're seeing that these guys are charismatic. They're seeing that these guys have music that is appealing for a reason. And it's not just so what are you in town for? There was really some interest and depth to these interviews. And I think it was really, really great.
I think if my memory serves me correct, this was the day after the UN speech.
Fallon aired the day after, and Good Morning America was the day after that. So yeah, it was Monday was the UN, and then Tuesday was Fallon, and then Wednesday was Good Morning America.
So just briefly, Tamar, put into perspective or context just how important and massive the UN speech was. And also, if you could sort of stress why they were there. Because I think some people think they were there because they're a popular band. No, that's far from the truth.
So BTS is actually the UNICEF ambassadors that they have a campaign called Love Myself. And that's it's a campaign to promote nonviolence. And it's raised over 0.03 million was the last I checked. The website isn't day-to-day updated, but that was when I last checked. $1 million US, and it's really it's two parts. It's kind of based on donations and also based on the sales from the album. So their Love Yourself series is actually going to this UNICEF campaign. And so then they were there at the UN, not even for their Love Myself campaign. They were there for was it Generation? I am blanking on this right now.
Do you know this, Jeff? Generation.
I'm really embarrassed. I'm sorry,
It is
everyone.
a busy week. No, but it was an incredible speech, nevertheless.
Yeah, they were there pretty much for the UN. UNICEF usually focuses on children, and this campaign was focusing on raising youth, going to young adults and literally young adults into I think the early 20s to help promote careers and education worldwide, which is extending UNICEF's project. And that's the perfect thing for BTS. And RM got up there and pretty much talked about the focal point of the speech was that you should speak for yourself and create your own identity. And he reflected on his own career, how he nearly listened to the voices of others when really he had to just listen to himself and speak for himself and pursue music because that was what he was telling himself. So it was a really inspiring speech, and I think it really showed that they have a message that they're putting out there, and it relates to the whole album series. So these two number 2 albums aren't just, good albums, they also have some meaning to them and some really deep messaging to them.
An important message. And we're going to go to a fan at home right now. This is Karen who sent in a video reacting to that UN speech.
Youth right now, it's under so much pressure from society, from the internet, whatever. And I do think we need someone to tell us, don't be afraid and you can do things. Just speak yourself and don't be afraid to use your voice.
There you go. So that's Karen.
Love that.
Anything to add there, Jeff?
Oh, I mean, that's what this is all about. It's like it's not about the, of course the dancing, the fashion, whatever sort of superfluous thing you want to attribute this to is like it's there, of course. But that's the thing that I think has surpassed music, culture, language barriers, whatever it might be, is that there's this larger message that even though, I mean, I don't know her, but I don't think she speaks Korean. And, I think she didn't grow up with BTS, as like kids or anything like that. Like she is inspired by their message and what they're saying and their larger themes and concepts of just what they do. And seeing something like that, I'm like, oh my gosh. I was like, that's what you wanted to share with the world. All thanks to this, group.
Absolutely, yeah, and they've had just an amazing week. 2 shows at the Prudential Center. The big one, though, that we talked about at the top of the show, the City Field, 40,000 plus seats, and we've got our friend Melissa at home who sent in a video talking all about the achievement. Check this out.
Ooh.
I think that it's absolutely phenomenal and earth-breaking for them here in America. I think that more people will grow to learn about them due to this new achievement in other countries and markets that's not South Korea or Japan.
There we go. I'm adjusting my pants. Sorry, guys. That was Melissa. Thank you very much for weighing in there. But again, just a massive achievement in her own words for City Field. And I guess to wrap things up, I'd love to just kind of ask you guys, I guess first of all, something I see a lot in the mentions on social media, I can't imagine how busy your guys are, is this sort of resistance to the notion that BTS in 2018, at this point, selling out stadiums in America, should be considered a K-pop act. And I know it's a complicated question, but in your guys' minds, I'd love to get both of your takes. I'll start with you, Tamar.
Cool.
Are they still should they still be considered a K-pop act in 2018?
So I have like a lot of thoughts on this.
I know.
But first, I think the question should really be reassessed why people have such an issue with the term K-pop, because first of all, the group uses it themselves because that's what we use in the English language media, and it's really a term coined by the media just to pretty much make it easier than saying a Korean group or a South Korean pop group or a South Korean boy band. It just is kind of like a catch-all phrase, and obviously catch-alls, they're generalizations, so they're not great, but it does its purpose, I think. But I think really the question shouldn't be, are they a K-pop group? Because in Korea, you don't actually call them, or anybody, K-pop, you call it idol music. So their new song, Idol, is actually a response to that rather than the English phrase K-pop. And it's kind of, well, are they an idol? It doesn't really matter. The song literally starts off with, like, you can call me whatever you want, because it doesn't matter, because they know that they're just who they are. So I think kind of the question should be a little bit less, is it K-pop, is it not K-pop, and why do people have this aversion to that phrase, and what's so wrong about lumping, this Korean group with other Korean acts? Because if anything, by saying they're not K-pop, you're saying don't go listen to any more Korean artists, like just focus on BTS, which I think is a little sad because there's so much the industry has to offer over there, and there's just so much, in general, like I don't only cover K-pop, like Asia and its music scene is really opening up to the US right now. And like, I don't think there's anything, I think if you want to call them K-pop or you don't, you want to call them idols, you don't, like, it doesn't matter. Like, right. It's only gonna help more people, cross over if we recognize how good the scene is over there.
Right.
Yeah, it's a loaded question for sure, and something that I've tried my best to learn about and research and kind of get at, what is the aversion to this term in particular. And I think it's not even the term necessarily or whatever it is, but like what is associated and what is felt when these terms are used. There was this really unfortunate instance of a I'm not going to name names, but there was an unfortunate American news broadcast, and the person kept emphasizing their
boy band from Korean boy band, or boy band from Korea.
Yeah, boy band from Korea, and it kept saying boy band from Korea, boy band. And I said, and I just was like, why do those words seemingly like detract from what is being said? And it was actually in response to the United Nations speech, which has nothing to do even with music and being a boy band, being whatever language you are. It's literally the United Nations. It's all these kinds of countries. So sorry, I'm getting like emotional or something. But yeah, it's just, I think it's like we need to take a look at those terms and be like, why do those terms like take away and detract from? Because as early as 2017, BTS themselves, their CEO talked about we do what we do best as K-pop artists. I did this really interview that's very close to my heart in that way with both those people, the CEO of their record label and BTS, and that was something. There's a lot of pride in where they come from and where they're from, and even at the United Nations, he said, "Oh, I'm from South Korea," and
At his hometown, like he was hyping this up. Like there's nothing wrong with being a boy band from South Korea, unless you think there's something wrong with being a boy band from South Korea.
Yeah, and the achievements, they speak for themselves. Who plays stadiums in America is a very small select group of musicians. Take away any of their genre tags, it's Beyonce, it's Jay-Z, it's Lady Gaga, it's Taylor Swift, Bieber. It's when you kind of put the achievements up there and see, they're I don't know, like they've surpassed any type of tag because I think they're just themselves, and they've done this simply on their own accord, not by anyone else's rules or anyone's, expectations in that way. But yeah, it's definitely a tough question, but it's something that it requires a deeper exploration, I think, of the actual topic.
I saved the most complicated question when we have 2 minutes left.
Thanks, Kevin.
We are unfortunately out of time right now, but two quick hitters as fast as we can right here that I wanted to ask you. First, Tamar, is K-pop going anywhere?
No, I mean, going up, like.
Well, no, but I'm saying, maybe a detractor would say, "Oh, this is a
No.
fad. This is a trend. BTS is going to be the one."
I think.
Is it here to stay?
Yeah, I mean, I think every this is like my whole life. K-pop this is really hard. So Korea's music is known as like Korean wave, and it's wave because it ebbs and flows. So I think like this is something that's gonna ebb and flow, and it's never gonna go away. Like we have had K-pop here for over a decade. There have been concerts regularly in the U.S. Obviously, some years have had more, some years have had less. Right now, we're like at the peak that we've seen so far, but it can still get higher and higher. Right. So it might ebb and flow, as I said, because it's a Korean wave, but I don't think it's going anywhere anytime soon.
Okay, and then Jeff, where's BTS a year from now?
Oh my gosh. Well, hopefully with a lot more achievements under their belts, maybe a Grammy or something like that. I mean, I hope that they are considered like one of those. I hope at this point next year that it's not just this phenomena, that everyone's like, oh my gosh, teach us your names and teach us a dance move, that it's like, oh, BTS is here to speak about their larger message, and they're speaking about, they have something to say. And I really hope that it's less about the flash and the glitz and the gloss, but it's rather about what they have to represent. And they're recognized in that way. Simply for being BTS in and of themselves.
Awesome. We look forward to it. Tamar, Jeff, thank you so much for stopping by. Thank you guys for being here. And we'll see you soon. Thanks for watching.